Welcome to the Real Estate Bee with your guide and as a trusted real estate expert, Daniela Gnecchi.
Hello and welcome. Today I will give you the latest updates about the famous 100% tax for non-European residents who acquire properties in Spain. Stay until the end because it is a very important videos. I will tell you what happened, what is likely going to happen, what tax we are talking about, because finally we know how you can avoid this tax, and it's very easy, much easier than you may think, and why Sanchez has started to talk about it again now. I am Daniela Gnecchi, my agency is the Real Estate Bee, and this is my channel, everything you need to know to purchase a property in Spain as a foreigner. Let's start. What's the background? Let's go back to January 2025 when Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez proposed a supposed housing reform plan to combat Spain's housing crisis. Among these proposals, there was a 100% property purchase tax targeting non-EU, non-resident buyers. The aim, according to Sanchez, to limit foreign ownership in high-demand areas and reduce the pressure on local housing. The announcement, although was very vague, Sanchez never explained which tax he was talking about, for example, sparked, of course, global concern. But there was no official bill at the time, just a very high impact headline and a lot of speculation. And of course, it didn't help that the media reported it as if it was already a law, exactly like they are doing now. Anyway, that was the situation, and then silence. For months, there was never any update. Then, last week, without any prior notice, the PSOE, which is the Spanish Socialist Party, Sanchez's left party that leads the government but lacks a majority, formally submitted the draft legislation to Congress. This was totally unexpected. Even the coalition partners like Sumar weren't informed or briefed. And yes, the 100% tax is included. Therefore, we now know more about what this means. Why did Sanchez drop this law proposal in Congress last week out of the blue? Watch until the end, because I will share a strange coincidence with you that might explain that. First, let me say this clear. The law is not approved. As of today, it is not in place. Let's clear up the confusion. Some people think the proposal means the transfer tax will double. I saw several articles over the past few days explaining in detail how to calculate the tax, basically doubling the ITP. What is the ITP? The ITP is the property transfer tax that you pay when you buy a second-hand property in Spain. I recorded a video time ago about all the different taxes on the purchase price. There you find all the explanation. The link is in the description. So these articles explain how this 100% law was a 100% increase in this tax. So if the tax is 10%, you pay 20%. Well, that is not the case. When I tell you that you have to work with the right people, this is what I mean. Be careful to who you listen to, because you can get things completely wrong. Here's what the bill actually says. The tax is a new national level tax. It would apply only to non-EU, non-resident buyers, and it would be equal to 100% of the property's value, minus any local transfer taxes already paid. Example, you buy a second-hand property for 250,000 euros. You pay 10% ITP, property transfer tax, to the region, 25,000 euros. Then you pay this new national tax of 225,000 euros. So the total taxes that you pay between the ITP and the new tax is 100% of the price of the property, effectively doubling the price. Why does Sanchez explicitly say that it's a new national tax? Because Spain is made of regions, of different regions, and each region has its independence. And the ITP, the property transfer tax, is decided by the regions. That's why it differs in the different autonomous regions. Therefore, by claiming that this tax will be a national tax, Sanchez wants to impose it to all the autonomous regions. And this is already tough because the regions are against this. Most of the regions are against it, and several regions are not even applying any of the laws that Sanchez issues. For example, the ones on the rentals, they are not even listening to him. So already this will be, let's say, highly controversial. Anyway, super important. Now listen carefully. The new built properties will not be subject to this tax. They will be exempt because they are subject to VAT, not transfer tax. This was confirmed by Spain's National Economist Council. So the tax would only hit resale properties, second-hand homes. Therefore, even if you are a non-EU resident, if you buy a new development property, this tax does not affect you. I invite you to go to my website, therealestateb.com. I have updated it, and you will find hundreds of new development units in the best areas on the coast that you can check. And if you ask for information about any of the properties, then you will automatically receive updates on new promotions, new projects. And remember, the sooner you buy, the less you pay. And of course, I'm at disposal to help you find the dream property. Now back to Sanchez. Now, where can we see that this law is just a political statement and not a serious law proposal? In Spain, on average, there are around 600,000 transactions per year. In 2023, the latest data we have, in 2023, the number of properties sold to non-EU residents was around 23,000. 23,000 of 600,000 is around makes 3 to 4%. Hardly an amount of properties that, if not sold to non-EU buyers, would solve the problem of the housing in Spain. Additionally, if we consider that newly built properties are not included, are not affected by this tax, let's split, as an example, 50-50, 50% purchases were new build, 50% were resale, means that we have a proportion of purchases by non-EU residents that is between 1.5 and 2%. So even worse. Additionally, which properties are we talking about? Because most of non-EU residents are buying properties, for example, on the Costa del Sol, on the Costa Blanca, luxury properties, villas. Are we sure that a 2 million villa on the Costa del Sol bought by a non-EU resident is a property that is taken away from a Spaniard who is in crisis because he cannot get to the end of the month. It's two completely different worlds we are talking about. And let's remember that the foreigners who buy this type of properties, they bring a lot of money and a lot of jobs to Spain because they consume. They play golf, they do sport, they visit the places, they go around, they go to restaurants, and this is all richness. So this has nothing to do with the real housing problem in Spain. It is just a political statement and something else I'll explain soon. What's going to happen next? Here's where politics come into play. PSOE, Sanchez's party, is governing in a minority. They need support from coalition partners and regional parties. Sumar, which is the left-wing party allied of Sanchez, has already expressed concerns about this law. The main opposition parties, PP and Vox, have outright rejected the 100% tax as populist and dangerous. Even the Basque Nationalist Party is against it, arguing that these policies should be handled locally and not nationally. The regional governments, as I was saying before, particularly in places like Andalusia, are already preparing legal challenges claiming that the tax is confiscatory. I'll explain later. As it stands, over 170 of the 300 MPs appear likely to oppose this measure completely. And unless it's rewritten dramatically, the bill is headed for serious turbulence. What's the timeline? By June 4th, all parties must file official responses or amendments. If even one party vetoes it, a vote will follow to decide whether to scrap the bill completely or rewrite it entirely. If it proceeds, the bill will face a lengthy amendment process. Realistically, we are looking at probably the end of the year or later before anything is decided. So you have all the time you need in the meantime to purchase your property. Let's now address the biggest issue. Is this tax even legal? Well, apparently no, because this tax is likely unconstitutional and illegal under EU law. The Spanish Constitution prohibits confiscatory taxation, which means a tax so high that it effectively takes your entire investment. Several tax experts, including from Spain's tax authority, believe that this tax crosses that line. About EU law. There is a law in Europe which is the free movement of capital. And here is the legal wall, the real one. Spain is an EU member under the Treaty of Rome of 1957 and other founding treaties. All member states are bound to uphold the free movement of goods, services, and capital. That includes investment even from outside the EU. What does this mean? This means that Spain cannot discriminate against US, British, Canadian, or Australian investors. Real estate is included in the definition of protected capital. There are legal precedents. In 2014, the European Court of Justice forced Spain to extend inheritance tax benefits to non-EU nationals, ruling it discriminatory because until then, it only benefit EU residents. Similar restrictions in Portugal and Greece were also overturned by the same, under the same EU laws. Some lawyers, even recently, have been already escalating to the European Court for the differences in the taxes on rental income between EU and non-EU residents. So, simply put, if Spain moves ahead with this tax, it will likely face formal complaints from the European Commission. It will be challenged in the European Court of Justice, and the law would probably be overruled, and Spain could possibly be fined a lot of money. Simply, you cannot be in the EU and ignore EU law. Spain ceded certain sovereign powers when it joined the European Union, and now they cannot go play their own rules when these rules are in conflict with the principles of the European Union. Even if Spain tries to enforce this tax temporarily, it would trigger years of legal battles, and it could possibly also strain Spain and EU relations. So this isn't just a real estate issue. It's something that extends to a political and legal minefield the country very likely does not want to go into, especially now that it's performing on an economical level better than all the other EU countries. So, conclusions. The 100% tax has now entered Congress, but between a minority government, a widespread political opposition, strong regional resistance from all the autonomous regions, and major legal barriers, both in Spain and in Brussels, it's highly unlikely that this tax would survive in its current form. So why is Sanchez doing this? Two reasons. One, to buy votes. His own housing law that only protects tenants is the real cause of the housing crisis. I spoke about it in several videos. I'm not repeating it here. If Sanchez was serious about solving the housing problem, instead of putting an insane tax on 2% of the property buyers, he could reduce taxes on property purchase for young people, for people who live under a certain income level. He could refurbish all the empty buildings that the city councils own around the country, which are many, and offer them for rental. He could give permissions to build more properties, especially in some areas, but no, he doesn't do anything of this, which is what a socialist government should actually do. No, instead, he only targets tourist rentals and foreign buyers, which represent a tiny minority of the housing in Spain, which does not solve the problem at all, and which threatens the two main sources of economical prosperity of Spain, tourism and real estate. Why? To appeal to the people who vote for him. The ocupas, the ones who expect other people to take care of them so they don't have to work, and make them believe that the foreigners and the tourists are the bad people who take housing away. And the second reason why Sanchez is doing this replies to my prior question, why now? Why was this bill dropped in Congress suddenly without any prior notice? Well, let's look at this. Sanchez's brother got himself in big troubles in January 2025 because of, let's say, misappropriations of public funds while he was in office in Extremadura in Spain. This happened coincidentally when Sanchez first made these shock announcements about the 100% tax, at exactly the same time when his brother was appearing in court to testify in a large corruption case in which he was implicated. Now, Here we are in May, last week, and Sanchez's brother is in the news again, and it's because it's been confirmed that he is to stand trial for his corruption charges. And this happens again exactly at the same time this bill has been dropped into Congress without any prior warning whatsoever and containing some very controversial measures. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences, but what I believe is that now there is a big fuss in the news about this, and no one is talking about Sanchez's brother going to trial for corruption. Anyway, let me recap facts that we know of today. As of today, there is no 100% tax. There will never be 100% tax on new developments. Even if you buy a second-hand property and you buy with a company registered in Spain or in the EU, even if you are a non-EU resident, as I said in one of my videos about that, you will not pay this tax. So there are ways to work around it. I doubt this tax will ever exist in this form, but I will keep a close eye and I will keep you informed on the developments and updates as soon as we know more. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, like this video and share it. Remember, knowledge is power. The more people know the facts, the less power, fear and misinformation have. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.